Hey there, it's Damien Apple with Native Roots Farm. Thanks for coming out to the farm today to see how we do some tool usage with bed prep, weeding, and harvesting. This is Native Roots Farm. We do about an acre of intensive vegetables. We have 2 hoop houses for a total of about 5,000 square feet, and we are very excited that it is almost the middle of May, so we will be in full swing on the farm very soon. This is our broad fork that we use on the farm. It is one of the main tools that we use for bed preparation. So broad fork has typically 5 or 6 tines. Ours has 5 tines. You're going to sink it into the ground. You're going to step on it like this so it sinks all the way in, and you're going to slowly pull it back to loosen the soil. Once I do that one, I'm going to pick it up, move it 10 to 12 inches back, step it in the ground, wiggle back and forth so it's all the way in, and do it again. We're going to do this completely down the bed. It helps to reduce compaction in your soil. It also helps for good drainage and promotion of, the promotion of biological life in your soil. If we didn't have a broad fork, we'd be using some kind of a tractor implement, but we love to use hand tools, so this is our primary way to do bed preparation. Alright, so I'm going to show you how we do weeding on our head lettuce. When we transplant it, it is spaced every 9 to 12 inches apart. We do 3 rows per bed, and we like to cultivate it with a hoe at least twice between when we plant it and when we harvest it. We have a standard hoe right here. This is what I use a lot. I find it to be very, very useful. I love how long the handle is. And then we have triangle hoes over here that are more appropriate to use, especially when your heads of lettuce are larger and you don't want to risk killing your lettuce by chopping it with your hoe, which I've done that numerous times. Alright, let me show you how to do it. So when you use a hoe, you don't want to manipulate it where you're using a lot of muscle. Your goal is to disturb the surface of the soil, the top inch or 2, so that all the weed seeds on the top, which are hopefully at thread stage, will be disturbed enough to be killed. So this hoe can go in and out of all my rows and do exactly what I want very, very easily. When I'm going to use a triangle hoe, I'm going to use it a little bit differently. I like to hoe at a diagonal, so I'm going to go in between my rows, my plants just like this, and shuffle it through the dirt just about an inch deep. That really helps to disturb the surface, and in addition to helping with weeding, it helps your plant for aeration if you have a soil crust. Soil crust, it would be something where you touch the soil and it's very hard on top and it's not penetrable. For vegetables, we want the soil to be a little crumbly on top because that helps to seal in the moisture that is below that crumbled dirt right at the top. These lettuces will be in and out within 40 days, and they're one of my favorite crops to grow. This is a standard hoe, and we use it for all types of bed prep on the farm. Today I'm going to show you what we do to make our green bean beds. So I like to have 2 different trenches for our green beans. I showed you the earthway seeder to plant green beans. We don't do that. We just scatter them in with our hands. And why? Because sometimes it's just easier, or sometimes it's our preference. It's the best thing about small-scale farming is you don't have to plant an acre of green beans, so you can choose whatever feels best for you. So with my standard hoe, I'm going to make a trench that's about 4 to 6 inches deep, and I'm going to scatter my green beans in it. When you plant your green beans, you just take your package or your hand and you just sprinkle them right down on the ground, and then to finish them up, you just pop a little bit of soil right on top, just an inch or two. You don't want too much because you want to make sure that your green beans will come up through the soil. Several recommendations. If you have clay soil, I recommend pre-sprouting your beans before you plant them. That way they have a better chance at coming through a harder crust. If you don't know what that is, look it up. In sand, do not pre-sprout your beans. Compost, do not pre-sprout your beans. They will be ready to go and sprout very quickly regardless. So this is a bed of snap peas that are just starting to sprout out of the ground. You can see that the soil is dry and it's a little crusty. This is a great time to come through and loosen it and weed it and hoe it. I'm going to use my edge of my hoe to dig into the ground a little bit. You can see that I'm just going a little bit, but you can easily notice that the darkness of the soil is I'm flipping it up so that I am making the crust be eliminated and so that the soil can breathe, and when it rains the water will wash into the soil easier. I'm going to finish up this part right here, and then I'm going to show you how to use another hoe for weeding depending upon what you like. It's always personal preference, and don't just think that you should use one. Try a couple, see what works best for you. It still will probably take you a year or two to figure out what's your favorite. So this is a hula hoe or a stirrup hoe, and we are going to use it in a similar fashion. So we're just going to rock it back and forth on the side to loosen it. This does go a little bit deeper into the soil, but if it feels better on your arms, it is a better one for you to use. You have to be a little bit careful to work in between your plants. You don't want to slice off your peas. We plant our peas plenty dense, so if we slice a few peas, it's just fine. I particularly like to use it a little bit in a raking motion sometimes, because I don't like to hoe a bed and make the soil go out of the bed and into the walk path. I want that soil to come back into the bed so that it's raised up, so that when it rains, it doesn't just wash it out. The beds and the vegetables stay up higher, and if we get a lot of rain, that water is in the walk path. All right, so this is an example of soil that is crusted. It is hard to penetrate, and this means that if you're direct seeding like baby lettuce or radishes or turnips, your seeds could potentially have a harder time coming up. This is just a bed of broccoli, but this is an example of when you have a crusted bed, it's a good time to hoe it and loosen it up. If you just let it crust, when the rain falls on it, it's going to run off more and not be able to soak into the ground. So you want the rain to be able to penetrate so that you can not have to water your crop as much as possible. Depending upon on your soil type, it is your varying factor of how much your soil will crust. This is a Wheel Hoe, and we primarily use it to weed in the walk paths or aisles in between our beds. So this is a single blade, and you're going to work it back and forth to undercut your weeds and to disturb the soil. You can try to just walk forward with it, but I really like to walk and work it back and forth, and to use my arms and my shoulders to do the work. This is something that you can do pretty effortlessly and just keep a nice steady rhythm. All right, this is our seed bed roller. We use it to try to make a nice firm surface for planting our direct seeding our seeds into the ground. We just slowly pull it along the bed, and it helps to even it out and to make our bed ready to seed into. And then also we do it afterwards to get good contact between the soil and the seed. This is not a finished prep bed for seeding, but I'm going to show you what it would look like. This is our Johnny's 4-row seeder. So it's going to just be dragged through the soil just like this, and it's going to rotate, and the seeds are going to come out as we go along. We use this for baby lettuce, carrots, radishes, turnips, Asian greens, spinach, anything that you want to have in straight rows, and you want it to be as precise as possible. When I go to the next row, I just go like this, and then I plant another row. I want to explain to you the difference of seed size for when you use your 4-point seeder. You can see that we have different hole sizes. that I can adjust my seeder to depending upon what seed that I'm going to put in. And I just loosen up my ends, and then I work it down, and then I shove it back on the other side depending upon what I want. It's going to come through the bottom just like this. We have these small little brushes that you adjust to make sure that the seeds don't come through too quick or too slow. It is definitely a lot of finesse, so if you mess it up, don't worry, just try again and note what differences you made. This is an earthway push seeder, different than our 4-row precision seeder. This is used for crops like beans, peas, beets, bigger seeds typically. You can plant radishes. This is something that you can buy initially when you want to use some type of tool to do seeding rather just by hand. It costs about $100. You're going to empty your seeds into your hopper. Inside the hopper there is a seed plate. It comes with several different sizes depending upon the seed that you're planting, and then you're just going to start pushing, and the seeds will be dropped just as you go down. You can see that in the soil there's a furrow or a trench made, and the seeds go right in there, and the chain helps to cover it up. So what we have here is landscape fabric. It's permeable, which means the water goes through it, but it prevents the weeds from coming up through. We use this on more and more crops because it makes sure that we have more time to tend to all of our whole field, and we don't have to spend as much time on weed management. This is a bed of these are 2 beds of red onions. We burn holes every 10 inches, 3 rows per bed, and plant 3 red onions per hole. That way we're going to have a little bit of a cluster. We don't like extra big red onions because our customers don't want extra big red onions, so that's why we plant them in a cluster. We just have to come through and do some spot weeding every couple weeks and pull the small guys that are poking through the hole. The rest of the time, it's just watch them grow and give them lots of water. So what is our compost made out of? It's important to have a good carbon base to be able to make good compost on your farm. We have dairy goats and laying hens that help us have that base. What we usually do is we take the bedding that is mixed with urine and manure from the dairy goats, and that is the starter of our compost pile. We also have some straw or shavings that's mixed in from the chicken coop, and that way we have plenty of carbon to absorb all the nutrients. From there we take all of our leftover vegetable debris, our household scraps. We also collect coffee grounds from a local coffee house. We get juice pulp from a local juice bar. So we put it all into the compost to make it as nutritious as possible. When you're trying to make compost, sometimes you can do it in 60 days or less, depending upon if you have the right ratios. Ours usually takes 3 to 4 months from start to finish. So the majority of fertility we spread on our fields is this, compost. Either we get compost from our county compost site that's made from decomposed leaves, or we make it ourselves. This is homemade. And for our beds, we just grab it, and there's shovels, and we shovel it right on the bed. If you're really good, you can have the tractor moving, the tractor driver never stopping, and you can shovel the whole bucket without ever having to stop. I'm really good. So is my wife. So I'm going to show you how to plant a tomato plant. This is a bed that was a bed of curly-kale this morning. And this afternoon we're going to plant up into tomatoes. Whenever you're planting inside a hoop house, you want to have as quick as rotation as possible from one crop to another. This is very valuable space, so you always want it to be growing something that's going to earn you money. Tomatoes we plant one single row, and we're going to take our trowel, stab it in like a dagger, and make a hole that's 6 to 8 inches deep. I'm going to grab my tomato plant with my fingers like this right around the stem to make sure that it does not get too jostled in the process. I'm squeezing the bottom to loosen it. I'm going to see what kind of root structure I have. These tomatoes are still pretty small, so their roots could be a little bit bigger, and I'd prefer it, but this still isn't that bad. I'm going to pop it in the ground. You want your tomato to go in to be at least at or right around the same soil level as where it was in the pot. If it's a little lower, a little higher, I would recommend it to be lower, because higher means that it is a better chance of snapping off. You firm it just a little bit, but don't firm it a lot, because watering is going to do that for you. If your tomato plant is twice as big, I recommend taking your fingers and pinching off any of the bottom leaves. Whenever you transplant a vegetable into the soil, you are making it have to reroot and start its life again. Therefore, we don't want too many leaves on our plants when we put them in the field, because that means that they have to respirate a lot, and that's harder for them to get established. They'll grow just quickly. This guy will be up and going in the next 2 weeks and look like he's going to grow us some good tomatoes in the next months ahead. This is our garlic bed. This is 2 different varieties of hardneck garlic planted last fall. Preferably I like to plant them in October. My last plant date is usually December 15th, because sometimes the season gets away from you. Last year I think I planted on December 1st. But we do it in several different ways to make sure that it survives the winter well. We prepare the soil with the broad fork, we add compost to it, and then we plant individual cloves into the beds, and then we cover it up with straw. Why do we cover it up with straw? 1, it's a weed suppressor. 2, it helps control moisture. And 3, it insulates it through harsh winter weather. Do you have to do this? I'm told no. Would I recommend it? Yes. We'll be watering these garlic regularly every week until late June, to when it will be starting time to dry down, and then we usually harvest sometime the 1st or 2nd week of July. So I'm going to show you how we harvest our baby lettuce. We harvest in a method that's called cut and come again, which means that we just use a sharp Johnny's knife and we cut the outer leaves, and then we let the center growing tip regrow and produce more leaves. This is a way to maximize how much production you can get off of one bed. It takes more time to do the harvest, but you don't have to have as many beds. If you have a lot of beds to plant your baby lettuce, then maybe using something like a greens harvester or doing clear cutting is a more appropriate method, because you have that amount to be able to meet your production. In cut and come again, I'm going to grab my leaf, cut the outside one, grab my leaf, cut the outside one. You just go through down your line and see which ones are the big ones, and snip and pop them with your knife. It just takes lots and lots of time and practice to be able to see how many you can hold in your hand, and we harvest straight into gray bins. We already harvested this bed today, as we have a farmer's market tomorrow, so it's very small for us for our production, but it's one of our best sellers at the market, so we always make sure to have our baby lettuce. So this is a bed of Tokyo Bekana. It's an Asian green that not many people know about. It's something that we use in our spring spicy mix, which is filled with all types of Asian greens: pak choi, mustard, mizuna, kale, and also Tokyo Bekana. What we like about this is that even though it's already at seed stage, which means it's about time to rip it up, we can harvest it still, the outer leaves, and then we harvest the florets and put them in our spicy greens mix. People love the added fresh color and think the edible flowers are absolutely beautiful. Just because you've never seen someone do something like this doesn't mean you can't. That's one of the biggest things we've learned on our farm, is that if we think that we would like eating it in this certain way, then we think our customers would too. So we're very innovative like that. This is a cut and come again green. It's a member of the cabbage family, and it's extremely productive. It grows faster than any of our other greens in the spring. We harvest right into our hands, put it in our bin, wash it up, mix it in with all of our other spicy greens, makes delicious salads. So this is a bed of carrots and radishes that were planted 30 to 40 days ago. Most radishes take about 30 days, so we're ready to harvest the radishes from. I'm just going to go in there, and if my catalinden leaves are yellow or droopy, I like to pull them off because I want my customers to have the prettiest radishes that don't have any decaying parts of the plant on it as possible. I gather them all in one hand and just gather up usually about 10 to 12 radishes for my bunch. I'm just going to gather 5 here so as of convenience. Face them all one direction. Have rubber bands right on my wrist so that they're easy and convenient. Do a couple loops on the rubber bands on the radishes, and I'm good to go. It's really helpful to clean your vegetables like this as much and prep them in the field rather than someplace else. My extra leaves went right back into the dirt. I didn't worry about them. I'm even going to rinse my radishes off in the field. I don't take them into our wash pack area for that. The more you can do it right in the field, the happier you'll be. I highly recommend it. So this is how we wash a bunch of radishes. We take one of our irrigation hydrants and we have a splitter on it so that the water is only going to come out one side, and I'm going to put it on not all the way flowing but just halfway so I get a nice flow. I'm going to take my bottom where I have my dirt and I'm going to go like this, rinse it off, rinse my tops, and pop it in my lug or my bin. This takes less than 10 seconds per bunch of radishes to wash. It's super fast. You can do it standing up. I love it.